Hello, Gabe Heller here, Hohenzollern on YouTube and HowNabRunCouch on Twitch. And I'm going to be showing you today how to install Windows to boot on your Atari VCS via an external drive. Now, mostly I'll be following the instructions on this webpage, which is at atarivcs.com/content/pc-mode-create-windows-boot-drive.pdf. But it's not really quite as simple as this document makes it out to be. So I'm also going to be going into a little further detail and pointing out some potential pitfalls. And here are my notes. So first, you need a computer with Windows installed on it already. Now, there may be other ways to do this. I haven't tried them, but there are things you could potentially try if you don't have a computer with Windows installed on it. You'll also need a fast USB drive, at least 32 gigs. It may be possible to do a 16 gig one using a different tool. We'll be using WinToUSB, but there's another tool called Rufus. It will make 16 gig drives, but none of my 16 gig drives are fast enough. And in fact, most jump drives are simply not fast enough. You may be wondering, like, why does fastness make a difference? I'll just wait for it to boot. I found myself waiting for like days. Literally days for some of these drives to boot. And I think at some point Windows just thinks something's wrong because it hasn't booted yet. So you do actually need a reasonably fast drive, and most of them aren't. I would suggest an SSD, but I do have one here that I'm going to be using today. It is a SanDisk Cruiser Glide 64 gigabyte drive, and it is the only drive I have that's fast enough that's not an SSD. The next thing you'll need is Magical Jelly Bean Keyfinder, which they don't mention here, but you're going to need it. So let's find it. Magical Jelly Bean Keyfinder. Keyfinger. There we go. There we go. Keyfinder Magical Jelly Bean. There it is. Alrighty. And we download it for free. There we go. It has been downloaded. Let us open it. There it is. And I believe we can simply run Keyfinder from here. I think we can still run it. I think it just works. Yes, we need to give it permission to make changes to our device. And there we go. All this information you can cut and paste into a notepad document because you might need some of it later. You're definitely going to need some of it later. You might need all of it later. Okay, so I'm just going to paste it at the bottom of my little reminder document here. Now, a lot of this is probably going to be blurred out because I don't want you to know my CD key, my product ID, but that's the main things you want to know are this top line here, which is the version of Windows that you have installed, because you're going to need this key when you install it somewhere else, and this key is only good for this version. So make sure that you install the same version that you have on your computer on the Atari VCS. Okay, so having run Magical Jelly Bean Keyfinder and gotten all the important information, oh boy, there's going to be a lot of blurring out here. Get the Windows Media Creation Tool. Now there is a link in this document to the Windows 10 Media Creation Tool. If you have a different version of Windows, you may have to search for it, but I'm simply going to open this link in a new tab, and just for the record, the link is www.microsoft.com/en-us/software-download/Windows 10. There we go, and open it in a new tab. Create Windows 10 Installation Media Download Tool now. There we go, Media Creation Tool, and then we run it. And yes, we need it to allow it to make changes to our device. So I was getting a few things ready. I'll talk about the other potential options you have. Once you have the Windows 10 installation media, if you have a valid key, you can install to any internal drive that you might have. If you can then take that internal drive and hook it up inside an external enclosure, you may be able to boot a full version of Windows on the Atari VCS. Now, I have a laptop. I don't want to open it up to get the drives out and put other drives in to install on. Yes, you have to accept the license agreement. So I have not tested this, but it's possible that it could work. We'll be using what is called WindowsToGo. The other possibility is if you have a disk with Windows installed on it and not a whole lot else, then you could potentially copy the contents of that disk to a jump drive and then boot using that jump drive. That's another possibility. It's called cloning. But I have not managed to get that successful because I have far too much stuff on my drive. So it is impossible for me to get, for any reasonable amount of money, another drive big enough to hold it all. Okay, so we're going to create installation media for another PC. Next. All right. I believe I don't get to choose these things. On the other hand, perhaps you can choose these things, but these are the correct things for me. All of these are the version of Windows that I have installed on my other machine that I currently have. Okay, so we're going to make an ISO file because we don't actually need a flash drive for this part of the process. And there we go. We will simply save it. Windows.iso. Downloading Windows 10. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to talk about while we're downloading Windows 10. Yes, make sure that your drive is initialized or WinToUSB may not find it. So we're also going to need WinToUSB, and we may as well download that now while we're waiting. So let's find that. I think there is a link to it in this document as well. As you can see, those are the things we just did. And that's where we are now. Oh, it hasn't gotten to verifying the download. Okay, we won't want to do that. Okay, this is what we're going to need. Hasleo, WinToUSB. Is there a link? Yes, it can be found here. And for the record, this link is www.easyuefi.com/WinToUSB. Let's open that in a new tab. Don't think we need this anymore. Or this, for that matter. All right. So here it is. We download version 6.6, the free version. And there it is, WinToUSBfree.exe. But we don't need it right now. We won't be able to use it until we have the ISO. One thing you're going to want to do at this point is plug your jump drive in the USB slot. And then right-click on the Start icon and click on Disk Management. Now, if Disk Manager comes up here, and you can see your USB drive, there's mine, and it shows up, then you're fine. But if it doesn't show up, hopefully you'll get a message that says before you can use the drive, you need to initialize it, and then you click the button to initialize it. If you don't do that, WinToUSB will not be able to find your drive. This tends to be a case more with SSDs than with jump drives, but it could also be the case for some jump drives that they come completely uninitialized with no partition table at all. WinToUSB will not find it. All right, now we're going to finish downloading Windows 10. We're not going to format this disk. Not now. All right, here we are. We can bring the ISO file to a DVD, but we don't want to. So I'm just going to finish. All right, so now we're going to do what it says here. We're going to launch WinToUSB, which I believe we have in our download here. There we go. Yes, we have to allow it access. All righty. We're going to set up the program. Yes, we have to accept the agreement. Yes, I had it installed before when I was testing this. Install. Thank you for installing WinToUSB. Okay, so now I should be able to type it in here and my computer will know where to find it. There we go, Hasleo WinToUSB. Yes, we have to. All right, that should look, oh, and it has a little guide here, conveniently, but we're going to follow these instructions. No new version was found. Okay, cool. So now I have to find where Windows put that file. I think it was in my home directory. Is that where I put it? maybe in downloads. There it is, windows.iso. All right, and this is where you want to be sure you select the same operating system that Magical Jelly Bean Keyfinder found you here. Windows 10 Home is mine, so that's what I'm selecting. Okay, then we need to select our destination disk. Make sure you select the correct one. Mine is the SanDisk Firebird. That's telling me disk or partition space is insufficient. Didn't do that before. Actually, I did that before an awful lot, but not with this drive. I thought this drive was fine. So we're going to have some live troubleshooting here. There is a partition there, so suppose we delete the partition. We can't delete the partition. Well, suppose we go and clear the disk with diskpart. Yes. List disk. There it is. It is disk 4. Select disk 4. List partition. Yes, there is a partition. Let's just get rid of that. Clean. Yes. Succeed in cleaning the disk. Now let's see what it looks like. Still telling me it's got 65 megabytes of raw and it's I. What if we take the disk out and reinsert it? There we go. Now if we select SanDisk Firebird, there's still insufficient disk space. I think we actually have to restart WinToUSB for it to recognize that we have a new drive in. It's pretty picky that way. Quite often, it will simply not work. All right, the image file is windows.iso. Windows 10 Home. Select the destination disk. It doesn't even show up. Well, that's not good. Well, let's try formatting it with NTFS. Aha! You must initialize a disk before Logical Disk Manager can access it. Select disks 4. Give it a GPT. Okay, I'm not sure why this message didn't come up last time, but this is the message I was warning you about. And if you don't do that, there we go. It's still showing as unallocated, but hopefully WinToUSB will be able to recognize it now. There it is. Ha-ha! And we've gotten to the next step. Now, according to this document, it just works every time. You don't ever have these troubles, but as you noticed, I had them, and there's a decent chance you'll have them too. If it just doesn't show up, you may have to delete partitions on it, take it out, put it in again, run Disk Manager on it, try some things until it actually shows up and it allows you to install. Okay, so we've gotten to this step. There we go. Where we select GPT for UEFI. Yes. And yes, all data will be destroyed, so don't have anything on it you want, but I'd done that long ago. Okay, and let's go to format. Aha, and in a moment it will show us a few other things. One of the modes that you can install is VHD, which stands for Virtual Hard Drive, which means it will make a partition And in that partition will be a file. It's the one that they suggest, and it's the one that I've used successfully. In that partition will be a file, and that file will be a hard drive virtually, and on that hard drive will actually be the partition that Windows is running off of. It's weird, but it's one way that you're allowed to change the size of what you're using. So if you don't want to use your whole jump drive, you could type in something smaller here. Supposing you want to have another operating system on it, or you want to have shared storage that other operating systems can access. Maybe you don't want to use the whole hard drive. So just to demonstrate that, I'm going to use 40 gigabytes. I typed 40. Let's try using the arrows instead. 40, there we go. No additional drivers. You don't need to enable BitLocker. I mean, maybe you do. I haven't tried it, but this works as is. Alrighty. And now is the point where you will discover whether your drive is fast enough. Basically, this process should take no more than like an hour and a half. If it takes longer than that, then you've got a problem. Windows will not boot quickly enough, and it will think there's something wrong, and it won't boot at all. So, and now we wait. But I was going to explain virtual hard drive. So it is also possible to access the virtual hard drive, and I'll show you that once we've made one. Okay, so it's almost done here. I just wanted to mention something else about the speed of drives. You may be tempted to think that if you have a USB 3.0 drive, it will definitely be fast enough. Well, USB 3 standard is fast enough, but that doesn't mean that the internals of your drive will be fast enough. It's even possible, I think, to do this on a USB 2 drive, as long as the internals are fast enough. Usually the transfer speed on a jump drive is limited by the internals more so than the protocol. Maybe if you have a USB 1 drive, it might be a little too slow. Alrighty, it is installed successfully. Let us exit. Are you sure you want to quit? Yes. Okay, so now before we go and do what it says, plug the internal drive or flash into the Atari VCS and cycle the power button, before we do that, I'm just going to show you what we've got here. So let's go to Disk Manager. There we go, Disk Management. There we go. Now you'll see that we have a partition here called WinToUSB. So let's run J. You'll see that it has one big file, and that file is called WinToUSB.vhd, which is what I was talking about earlier. This is a virtual drive file, which it will boot off of. And if we go back to this PC you'll see that there's some space available at the end of this partition. So, well, space available, as it turns out, it's at the end of the partition. So now if we wanted to actually use the rest of this drive for the thing, we're going to have to shrink the volume here. And as you can see, we can shrink it by 20 gigs. Cool. Given that there's nothing that the file system is going to use the rest of the partition for, that's an absolutely fine thing to do. And then you'll have some space on the end of your drive you can do other things with if you want. All right, there it is done. And as you can see, we now have 20 gigabytes of free space. If you attach VHD here from the action menu in disk management, let's browse for it. That'll be a little easier. It's on drive J. There we go. And open. There we go. And let's just set it for read-only now just for safety, but obviously you can also write to it. There you go. It has added an iDrive to the drives that are available to us. And if we type in I:/, it will show us this is the stuff that is installed on this jump drive for booting Windows. And if you have some other drivers, if you want to run it on some other machine, WindowsToGo doesn't have as many drivers as regular Windows, so it might not work, but you might be able to get it to work by putting some drivers here or some programs that you intend to install, that sort of thing. So now that we're done with that, let's unmount this. We right-click and detach VHD. Good. And just to be safe, down here, we can go to Safe to Remove Hardware and Eject Media and select the Cruiser Glide. That's mine anyway. Yay! And now we can take it out. And I'll see you on the Atari VCS.
And here I am with the jump drive that I've been using. And here's the Atari VCS. I have it hooked up to a network cable because I didn't want to mess with the Wi-Fi in this room. Is weird. It requires special setup via my cell phone, and I just don't want to mess with it. So we're on a cord, but I think it would probably work if you have Wi-Fi to use your Wi-Fi. So here we go. We're plugging in the drive. There we go. And turning on the Atari VCS. There's the logo. And we have spinning. This could take a while. Alright, and here we are, ready to start setting things up. I'm going to say United States because that's where I'm probably going to use it the most, but even though I'm currently in the UK. But I do have a UK keyboard because I didn't fly one over from the US. So let's see where. There we go, United Kingdom. Yes. Yes, I probably should because at some point I'm going to be. Now things aren't in a very convenient order because at some point I'm probably going to be home with this machine. English, United States. There we go. But I want to use United Kingdom. Now we have some important setup to do. I guess we have to accept the license agreement. I think, oh yeah, that's right. Things are in a different place on this key now. Keyboard. Okay, so they'll send a code to your email address. I'm going to check that on my phone, which is filming me right now. Okay, I'm not going to check it on my phone. I'm going to check it on my laptop. Okay, now I'm going to create a PIN because I signed in without a password. And this is much simpler than setting up an account and all the stuff that Microsoft wants you to tell them about you, which they probably already know about you. If you have an account, maybe you just log in with your account. I don't know. I think I've avoided having an account, and I don't care to find out right now. Okay, so I'll just make a PIN. Oh, and I'm going to include letters and symbols so it can basically be the same thing I type in everywhere. And I believe it will satisfy the PIN requirements, even though I haven't even checked what they are. Alrighty, now choose privacy settings. Let's just make everything very private. See, diagnostic data makes it sound like it's info about the websites you browse? No. I don't know what inking and typing is, so let's send them that information, sure. Okay, the number of ads you see won't change, but they may be less relevant to you, sure. Let's customize your experience. Skip! Remind me later. Maybe I shouldn't have said remind me later. Next. If you know what these things are, then you might know what you want to do about it. I don't want a free trial, but this is a way to get a free trial in case you want one. Not now. Just to let you know this video is over soon. So rub your eyes and stretch your thighs and sing in tune. It's time to find another kind of video, for this one is nearly done, you know. And here we are, we're in Windows, and what you do from here on out is up to you. Bye for now.